Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 474. We check comics. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot singular, the Duke of you know, and the elder statesman of the podcast.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to talk about Wonder Woman number 4 and 5. We're going to talk about Aquaman number 5. We're also going to talk about that kickoff Blue Beetle Rebirth issue. And just our general feelings on collecting in general, how we handle things like trades and hardcovers and what our preferences are there. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Jim, sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, this is the time of month where they're getting ready to convert the site over for the brand new books. So that's going to be kicking off over the next week. They're going to be putting out what the September releases are. And one of the things I like about this, I always like seeing what the deals are, not just for bundles and current issues and trades and hardcovers, but statues and things like that are coming out. I ended up this past month grabbing that Superman and Lois Lane by Gary Frank statue. It's the one where they're like flying over the Daily Planet. I saw that one. I'm like, I'm actually moving. I'm going to... moving into a new house, and that was my first statue I bought for the new house.
Nice, good one.
I need to own that one. I like Gary Frank's artwork a lot, and that one looks really, really sharp. So that was one of the ones that I grabbed. But they are also a digital partner with Comixology and My Digital Comics. If you do any of your shopping digitally, connect those to your DCB service account, but also make sure to shop through their portal, because when you shop through their portal, it connects to your account. And DCBService.com gets a little piece of your purchase, but you also earn credit towards your DCB service order. So make sure to shop through them and support our sponsor that way. It doesn't cost you anything more to do it. You actually get something back, and it helps out our show sponsor. So that's a great way. If you do most of your shopping digitally and listen to our podcast, help them out by doing your shopping through their portal. So I want to thank DCBService.com for supporting our show. Jim, In Stock Trades, what's going on over there?
Oh, come on. Well, speaking of deals of the week, they've got some really cool, always on the front page, they always have these great deals. And right now we've got Superman, Lois, and Clark in the trade, 50% off, only $8.99. But also right up there, Scalped. That Vertigo DC series, that actually was a really cool story, 50% off. Deluxe hardcover edition, only $14.99 for a hardcover. I was like, wow, that is a deal.
I like those deluxe hardcovers that they're doing for Vertigo stuff that they're releasing. I think they're really good. And the nice part about them is you get a nice issue bundle in them. It's kind of like those Walking Dead hardcovers that you get where it takes a whole 12 issues of it. I know that these are similarly priced and they have a similar amount of issues. And I really like Vertigo series. To me are always those ones where they read much better when you sit down and get to read like a few issues in a sitting and really enjoy the story arc. They're kind of crafted that way. And I can't recommend those deluxe volumes enough. So that's over at InStockTrades.com. We thank both of those sites for supporting our show. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics. Excuse me. I felt the cough coming. Of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
I honestly am so glad we recorded the content before that happened because I thought I was losing you there. And I'm like, well, at least I've got an episode.
Thanks, pal. Nothing but love.
Let's talk some comics. All right, Jim, I'm really excited this week to talk about comics again. We've done some episodes on media, DC and other media, but I'm excited to get back to the books that really bring us to the table. One of the funny things about Rebirth, just to talk in general about it, you and I were talking this week about what books we wanted to talk about because we knew we couldn't get to obviously everything we'd want to discuss. I really like right now that we've been podcasting for 10 years. We usually have a pretty easy time coming up with a lineup of about 5 or 6 books that are on the table that we'd want to talk about. Our discussions sometimes tend to get lengthy on certain titles, so we don't always get to everything that we put on our lineup, but usually the lineup is pretty simple to get together because we have certain books we're excited about. With Rebirth, it's an interesting problem, and I don't know if you were experiencing this because we talked earlier in the week about, like, let's make sure we get to recording in because we want to get a 3rd August recording in because we're trying to get at least 3 a month in. As we were talking through that, I was like, do you know what books you want to talk about? I think the problem was there was nothing we didn't want to talk about, which is a very unique experience. And I think is, for me, part of the success of Rebirth has been there's, like, every time I read something, there's a reason I want to talk about it. There's a fun factor there that's unique to the individual titles that I want to discuss. Are you having that experience? Well, I mean, I know I'm kind of blurting out my experience just because I know that that's where I'm at. And I'm kind of gathering you're having a similar experience. But what's this been like for you?
Yeah, well, big time. Ditto on what you said about trying to pick one topic, because there is no one thing that I want to talk about. I want to talk about it all. And it's funny because there's some stuff I keep jumping back to. Oh my God, that's awesome! And it's stuff we've talked about, but I'm still energetic. But I've got all the new stuff coming in, and I'm like, all this different stuff that we haven't talked. I honestly don't know how we're going to get through everything, and I think that's wonderful. The fact that I want to talk about everything, and I want to talk but I don't want to let these books that we've talked about in the past, that we've talked about already, just, drift away. Like Wonder Woman's a prime example. We've talked Wonder Woman, and I want to keep talking more about Wonder Woman because that's how much fun, how much enjoyment I'm getting from Wonder Woman. But I've got stuff like Beetle, Nightwing, Batgirl, the Batman, the Bats, the super universes, all the different greens. There's so much out there that I want to talk about all this stuff that it's, this is a really cool problem to have. And it's funny. I have these books now, multiple purchases of them. I'm just automatically buying the digital versions of them because, just one, is that it's easier for us recording, but 2, it's quicker and easier. I jump on, I buy the digitals, and I'm reading the digitals. But I've got the paper versions sitting right over there as well.
That's kind of the nice part about all this. There's so many of these titles that I am looking forward to buying in collected volumes too. Like I was a big fan of the Brian Azzarello Wonder Woman series when it came out, and they're doing an omnibus I saw of that, and I really want that. And it's funny how I'm liking that there's different collected editions coming out. I can't get every collected edition I want, but there's certain ones like that run was really good. Or that wasn't an omnibus, it was an absolute. I'm sorry,
it was an absolute, yeah.
It was an absolute edition. So I'm pre-ordered the absolute edition. I want the absolute edition because I collect those anyway. But I can't get every collected edition that I want. I am liking these omnibuses and the absolute editions for myself. I'm not getting every single omnibus, but the absolute editions, I've got almost all of them. And I really like that format. How do you make the consideration when there's a series that you're really digging? Because to your point, you and I are kind of in the same boat. We've got a hybrid collection now of, like paper versions, digital versions, collected editions. How do you make the distinction over which ones go to like multiple purchases?
Well, like with the trades and all that, it's for me, trade paperbacks, I won't pick up. It's got to be either the deluxe hardcover editions or absolutes to really draw my attention. I'm talking books that I have the floppies for as well as the digitals for. But when I see that hardcover, collected edition or an absolute, that's where I'll jump on it. And actually, a lot of times when I'm originally reading the series is when I'll put it in my head. When this comes out on absolute, I'm getting it. Like, for example, Wonder Woman and Aquaman from Rebirth, when those come out on trade, when those come out, the collected editions, I'm jumping on those. Just because I've enjoyed them so much, I want to have that hardcover on my shelf. Just like a lot of these Rebirth titles, I'll probably be getting the hardcovers when they come out.
Yeah, that's the hardcover editions really do make a difference for me. You're right about trades. I usually get trades if it's a series that I've never read. and it's only available in trade, I will buy it in trade. I tend to prefer hardcovers, though, like you. I mean, in the sense that if I'm sitting on a shelf, if I'm looking at a shelf and they've got the trades of a series and they've got the hardcovers of the series, I'm ponying up for the hardcovers before I'm going for the trades. So very rarely do I go for trades unless it's the only option before me. Then I will do the trades. But I like the hardcover. I like the durability of it. I like the readability of it. I just like having that kind of, it feels very solid, feels substantial. It's something for me that I like, and it's collectible. I think, obviously this is a collector's mentality. The absolutes for me, because of the slip cases and, the fact that they've always got that ribbon where you can use it as a bookmark, and it's an oversized, for art in itself, it just looks great. And they always do these absolute versions with the art in mind. They pick certain stories that have unique and interesting art. So that, for me, is the immediate draw to the absolutes. I would rather pay a premium for that. And that's why I like to pre-order them, because you're pre-ordering them at like 40 to 50% off. That to me makes a difference than buying them full price, because I couldn't do it full price. 50% off, I could.
Yeah.
So I think you and I kind of have a similar taste in the sense that we want the things that feel collectible in them. But I read them. Do you collect with the intention of, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, but do you collect with the intention of resale?
No. I collect for the intention of rereading and having it on a bookshelf and just having it be my book. I don't really think, resale. Eventually one day, when I'm long gone and someone has to take care of my estate, they're going to really hate me, because these are going to be a pain in the neck to sell, just because you got all this weight and all this stuff, and you figure 40, 50 years down the line, it's, who knows what the mediums are going to be around, who knows if books are going to be around or how things are going to go. So you're going to look at these big, thick tomes and people are like, what is this? I'm like, it's my life.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's kind of one of those things that I don't really collect for the purpose of resale. I did when I was younger. I was like, oh, it's cool. And I think maybe it's a justification. This is going to be an investment. And and when I say that, don't get me wrong. I'm not mocking people listening that do collect for that purpose. There's a lot of people that are very savvy on which are the premium books to collect, and they pay attention to the trends in the market, and they know what they're doing as far as collecting, and they know certain issues, and they go to cons looking for bargains for the purpose of getting those treasure hunt issues that, like, wow, if I get this now, I know what it's already worth now. So immediately by picking it up at a certain premium price at a con, I'm getting myself a certain value because I know it has resale. What I'm not good at is knowing what people will purchase and what they won't. In singleton issues, anytime I've sold comics, I've sold them in runs because I understand the readability factor of comics. I've never been a speculator on it. I think there's some great fans that completely understand the collectability side. I think there's fans that are great hybrid fans of that. I was interested, there's certain runs like Killing Joke. I remember when Killing Joke came out with like 800 different covers with the coloring was different on the lettering on the front of it. That was the designation on print. And I remember watching that price point. And at the time I remember it was going up considerably, the first print. And Dark Knight Returns had that same factor. I don't do that now. And there's nothing wrong with it if you do. It's just, I think it's interesting to talk about how do you collect. And I would imagine people listening to this, everybody listening has their own unique approach. Some people might be all trades where they're like, I like everything to have the same format. I like trades and I like having that same look. And I could see that being very much a thing. I don't think there's a wrong way to collect. I think it's just interesting. These in particular, I'm with you. If hardcovers these come out, I'm in. Because I really like these volumes. I like the continuity storytelling in it. So I would want to read it in a volume that's collected where I can follow through in the continuity. Which makes it interesting to talk about this first book. I'm wondering how they're going to collect this. Because we're going to talk first about Wonder Woman, and I want to talk about issues 4 and 5. Well, issue 4 is a year 1 story, and issue 5 is present day. I know from what we've seen in interviews or heard in interviews that there's going to be things that happen in year 1 that affect present day. So there is kind of a marriage to it, but it's very clear when I'm reading the year 1 story that I'm reading a piece that takes place in Wonder Woman's past, and it's a richly developed story. I wonder if they're going to collect year 1 to get issues together and present day issues together. Do you have a preference?
Initially, I would say, yeah, my initial reaction was collected as they come out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason I'm saying it is because I'm liking this jumping back and forth between past and present, past and present. I like that. But, I wouldn't complain if they bunched it with the timelines, if they put all the present day together and all the the past, the year one stuff together. I wouldn't complain about it, but just one of the things about Wonder Woman I'm digging is going one to one, jumping back and forth between the different times, and it's kind of neat seeing her in the year one story, then reading the very next story where it's her in the present day, and you see I'm starting to see the little tweaking and the little little changes they're making from the past to the present, and especially that picture that Trevor has. I so want to see the story behind that picture that Trevor carries in the present day, because it's her in a police lineup, and we're going to get the story in the year one stuff. It's going to happen. I so want to see that story, so want to see what happened in that situation that caused her to get arrested, that caused her to get that picture, because that's going to be that moment where it's so special why Steve still carries that picture. That's the story I'm so eager to see, and that's part of the reason why I want this to go back and forth, because we're right now getting early in the story you're seeing the picture, and we're going to get the payout at the end of the story if they run them in numerical order.
So I want to talk real quick about the creative team. It's Greg Rooker on writing, Nicholas Scott on art, Romulo, and it's Fajardo Jr. on colors, Jody Wynn on letters, Scott and Fajardo Jr. on the cover. I butchered the name. Frank Cho on the variant cover. Rebecca Taylor, associate editor. Mark Doyle, editor. And William Moulton Marston is the creator of Wonder Woman. And apologies for the name butchery on the colorist, because throughout the history of the show, since I first saw her work, Nicholas Scott's been one of my favorite artists. And that just continues. This is an artist who continues to grow, and I just really am captivated by the artwork. She has been really paired with some colorists that really have a strong understanding of what she's trying to do, how to collaborate with that, and to really make a special sequence. So this continues with this particular series. I'm a big fan of the visuals of this. And I'll shout out the creative team on the next issue as well, because this is really working for me. I like you, we read an issue in present day, we read an issue of the past, present day, the past. I don't care how they're collected either. I'm with you if they collected them chronologically to the way the series is releasing them, especially if there's a present day connection to what's happening in the past. More than just the picture that we're seeing there. I think there's gonna be. I kind of like this, so it's really working for me. I love this idea of kind of a slow getting used to what Amazon culture's like, because the way this is being delivered is telling us a little bit more of what day-to-day is like for them, what relationships are like on Themyscira. And I really like how they're subtly introducing that through dialogue and how people interact with each other. Who's potentially a couple on Themyscira. The political situation on Themyscira. Their code of conduct and their code on the outside world, and also on the island itself. I really like feeling like I'm getting to know this in real time, like I'm a visitor of Themyscira. That part's captivating me about year one and the way it's been crafted. The visuals are stunning. Like, I want to run around in this place. It's why I've referenced before, I'd love this to be a video game, because I want to run around in it. I would love this to be a real place I could go visit to run around on, too. And that's fun when you've got that in comics. I know Metropolis has that vibe to it always. Gotham has that vibe to it. Themyscira is one of those places I often forget to mention in the same light. It really works in this.
Oh, God, yeah. It is. As you're talking, I'm just nodding my head going, yes, 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 because there's so many. And I think that's, for me, one of my deep enjoyment of this Wonder Woman story has been just who and what are the Amazons? What are they about? And on top of the stories, I'm so glad you did the creative team, because once again, this is one of those just books that are absolutely just captivating me visually. Because it's not just the cool etchings on the face and the look. I love, like the sequence when they're breaking down their equipment and they're looking through it and they're studying it. But even just that, it's with the plane, and you look in the background where you can see them tending to the deceased. With there's a level of respect to them where they're anointing the bodies, and it's not just there's an actual a respect towards the dead, and they're recognizing that these are soldiers. They didn't come for an invasion, though. They're recognizing, no, this isn't an invading force. This is something else. And even, it was just like that. I love that moment where Diana and Steve can't understand each other yet. They don't understand she doesn't know his language, but she can get the vibe from what he's saying about his friends being dead, and she can understand that these are his brothers, just like the Amazons are her sisters. She understood that immediate connection that he had, and I thought those were some great emotional moments where we're seeing the dialogue on her end and we're understanding it, but the way it's physically drawn, you can tell they don't understand each other, but they don't understand you verbally, but emotionally, and just there's that connection right off the bat. I love just how that's playing out, that we're seeing the words, we're understanding, but it's still, they're still letting the visual story be a part of it.
Yeah, that part's really interesting to me too. I love the gun bit because of the fact that sometimes they play this out like the Amazons are really well aware of the technology that's going on in modern day man society. I like this better because it gives you the idea, no, they're an insular society, so they wouldn't know everything. She has tested this object out and is able to compare it to the tools they're used to. And I love that the general shows her strategy in the sense that she's looking, and I didn't use strategy, I like that she's looking at the use of the weapon and saying, okay, it's faster than any of our bows, and the range is farther. Really just kind of building this sense of danger, because they're analyzing, are these people a threat or not that came here? What did they come here for? And it's really an interesting political debate that honestly would happen here, would happen in our world. So I felt like I was really connecting with them and understanding what they were doing. You mentioned the sequence with Diana and Steve talking. Sometimes when that's portrayed, one of them looks less intelligent than the other or more innocent than the other because you never see the internal dialogue of both, I think, to the level that you see it here. I really liked that. I liked that Diana was determining, and it showed Diana's strength and compassion. She was determining what Steve was likely going through emotionally at the loss of his friends, at his comrades, the people that he, was flying with. And as a warrior herself, this is something that she connected with and was comforting him. Even though there was the language barrier, there was the understanding of the two warriors. And I really loved that moment because we got to hear the internal dialogue of both and really understand where they were coming from, what Steve's emotional vulnerability was, but also Diana's emotional strength. I really felt like it was a powerful moment, and you could see how this would be the beginnings of a relationship where she respects him, but he also starts to fall for her, not just for the beauty, but for the compassion, the intelligence, everything she brings to the table. And you could see how this would be the building blocks to something like that in that real intimate moment there that I thought was just really well done.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. And it's funny because you look at background sequences. I think that's one of my favorite parts of this, of this artwork, is when I'm looking at, you see just the even little stuff like plants and birds and, the sun coming through. That moment where she's, hugging, when she's comforting and saying, I'm so sorry. They went with a complete whitewash background. I thought that for me, that was kind of a neat thing so it really accentuated who they were and what was going on. And again, I really just thought this for me was just a really powerful moment. And I thought that was a really cool way to get you to focus on that and just say, bam, see this. It was one of those things where I was like, man, that's it's something I didn't catch when I was doing my first read-throughs, but when I'm doing the hard read-through, you're like, oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the part that I really enjoyed in the art read-through. Again, I'm looking at this sequence right now where they're going through the garden together, where it's Hippolyta.
Yeah.
And I love when they're walking through and you see the majesty of the horses. It almost looks like something out of a fantasy novel. And I really loved that choice because that's oversimplifying. But one of the things I always loved about fantasy is it looks like a painting, and it's like something where you're like, man, I want to hang that on the wall. And there were so many panels that were like a quarter of a page or a half page or whatever, where you were looking at the sequence that was happening there in the artwork, and I was captivated by the foreground and the background as much as I was the characters that I was following. And it really just, the amount of detail and care that was put into this really was something I admired. I'm well aware of the short time frame that this talent gets to try and put these things together. And I really appreciated the detail put into this issue because it stuck out for me. I read through this one and then kept going back through for the art again, just because I really, really enjoyed the visuals. This is one of my favorite artists, and I just really dug that. And I that's one of the nice things about, I think, the DC lineup right now. There's a really diverse array of artists that are working on these books. So if there's something that's not your cup of tea visually, there's so many different books out there with very unique art styles that there's got to be something artistically that you'll find very pleasing in this lineup. This, for me, is that book. It's a pretty book.
I know. It's funny because we could spend multiple hours just talking about just the various different art sequences, and just, again, the detail. I'll start getting repetitive on it, but it is something that really just, catches and amazes me. That especially especially with this book, the foreground, the emotional being relayed on the faces and all that. There's just so much being told in the visual. But then you look, just simple stuff in the background, like you look through, the room, look out the window, and you'll see the other buildings. You'll see the sun shining. You'll see some birds falling, some flying in the background, the ocean, the mountain on the hillside, and just and these are just the background that is, not even supposed to be part of your attention, and you're seeing all this kind of detail. Very easily could have gotten away with, not putting so much in the background because there's so much in the foreground to see, but they take that extra moment. They take that extra time. Simple stuff like the hedges, you see how it's broken down, the trees with the leaves and the fruit, the background trees, the horses, the next level horses. Oh, hey, there's the barn. Okay, now you're seeing that. You're seeing that little bridge where the people walking across, the statues, all these different stuff in the background has always been something that has got me going, dang, this is awesome. And it's funny thing is, I'm normally not the art guy. I'm normally not this like captain. I appreciate, but it's usually the quality of the story that draws me, and the quality of the story that says, man, this is great, But for this one, it's quality of the story. I'm loving how they're doing the contest and this quality of this artwork. So this is one of the reasons why Wonder Woman was a book I really, really, really wanted to talk about, because I'm getting hit on both levels of enjoyment.
One of the smart things about the present day story that's going on that makes year one even more valuable is this idea that she's being messed with and that her memories are being messed with and what happened in her past, in her mind, has been messed with. So there's a reason to tell what happened in the past again, and really to clarify it for us as readers. What I love about that is for people who liked other variations on the year one story, or her background story, those happened. But it was her being messed with. They've done this really clever crafting of everything that's happening on in modern day Wonder Woman and modern day DC Universe affects this past story and the fact that it happened. I love this method because I really am captivated by this. I love that they're really crafting this cool relationship between mother and daughter, where mom knows she's going into the contest and her daughter stands a real good chance of winning. I like that she's not a saboteur. At least it seems that way. She's not trying to keep Diana from it. Right. That's a different variation on this story, and I actually like that twist just because it gives a different take on this story. And I feel like I'm reading something fresh. It's it's a twist enough, with the Viper bite and everything that's going on, this sense of foreboding that they know there's something coming and they really do need to send a champion in the world. I like that it's not just Steve's arrival that's doing this. There are other factors at play. Steve's arrival just acts as a catalyst to really push that forward. And for some reason, that feels more valid than any other telling of this. It's not just Steve. Steve is a big factor, but all of these other things are a factor too. Really cool. That part has just made this very interesting. And I'm glued to every single moment in this of dialogue, because I think the dialogue pieces, not just of Diana and Steve, of everybody else in this story, has really made me feel like there's a advancement of the lore. And I love that. I like history of characters. I like finding out things I didn't know before. This is what Rebirth as a concept, when it was originally introduced, was all about. And I love that so many writers and artists are embracing that in this particular take this time around. And I think it's why this is so successful. And I hope it continues to be, because this is the kind of storytelling I'm really into.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's one of the neat things I really am glad they're doing within the contest. They're showing, the repair of the jet. They're showing where the different symbols where she's getting to make the Wonder Woman costume. How, because they've said it in the past, how she went with the color scheme of the U.S. because that's what Trevor was wearing and yada, yada. But I really like them showing the different pieces that they're pulling from. And actually you're seeing, the fact that the designer who's building the costumes got the eagle, the seal emblem on there. So they're using that for the eagle, and has the flag patch, so that's where they're getting the colors, and they're taking it and breaking it down. I thought that, for me, another really cool just telling of the story. And like you, I completely agree. I love the fact that Hippolyta knows that Diana's in the contest. I don't know which was the original version, whether she had to disguise herself or not. That's the most prevalent version. That's the only version I had ever known. So for them to go with this route, where she knows her daughter's in it, she knows her daughter's probably going to win because she's won all the previous games that they've had. So she's the kind of a lock on to win this, but it's still this is what they have to do. This is going to be their representative. This is going to be their champion. But I love how the fact that, she will be our ambassador. She will speak with our voice, not just as the defender of the Amazons, but as the protector of all who dwell beyond our shores. I love that sentiment, because that's something we always say about that makes Wonder Woman so cool, that she's not just the warrior. She's not just this really badass woman. She is actually the ambassador. She's the diplomat. She is the representative, and there's the intelligence, dare I say it, the strategery behind Wonder Woman's actions. I absolutely love the fact that they pulled this out right from the very beginning, and this is Hippolyta addressing the Amazon, saying, this is who you're going to be. This is who the Wonder Woman is going to be. I love that.
It is interesting. That I am looking right now at that double page, that gorgeous double page of the contest, where Diana's on the horse. It's just the sequence of her looking majestic, firing bow and arrows. I've always loved the bow and arrow. I just think it's a very cool. I was in Indian Guides when I was a kid, and my brother had a bow and arrow, and I had a BB gun. I was not the best shot with a bow and arrow, but I did it as a part of it, and I really enjoyed it. I always grew up loving Robin Hood and characters like that, and Green Arrow. I really appreciate the majesty when you see somebody on a horse riding and shooting at the same time. It's like, the effort that requires, the skill, the balance, and the grace. And that is all present in this artwork. Then you see this battle in the foreground, where it's a battle of skill, of using weapons and swords. Then you see tests of strength as they're in danger, as they're crossing like a fire pit over ropes. And the throwing of the spears and all that type of thing. I like the idea that this feels like Olympics. It feels like this big event, but there's a danger to it that really adds a different factor. It's a true contest where you can't afford to phone this in. You have to be bringing your A game, or else you're going to get out really quick, and quite frankly, you get hurt.
one of the things I loved about this, and I'm completely agreeing with everything you said, but only add to a couple other stuff. I like the fact that not every Amazon is competing in the games.
Right.
There are still a lot of them in the audience. And so it's like, this is the top of the top. This is the best of the best who are competing. Because I know when they first started talking about what are we going to do, Hippolyta was like, well, we asked for a volunteer, but they're like, no, everyone is going to step up. Everyone's going to say, hey, I will do this. There's not one of them who would back down. So that's why they made it the game. The regular games that they have, that's what became the contest. And I thought that for me was a really cool. Then seeing the people in the audience watching, knowing, okay, they recognize, okay, yeah, I'm an Amazon, I can kick some butt, but these are our best. These are our best of the best. We're going to let them compete. And that awesome combat sequence. One of the scenes I thought, that I thought was really cool was at the bottom panel, you see a medic on the field. And I thought that for me was a really cool notion where everybody else has their armor. She's wearing just the regular Amazonian clothes and she's helping an obviously injured person off the field. I thought that for me was another cool moment. Oh yeah, okay, right there. They've got medics going on because this is that serious. I thought those were kind of some really cool just moments that as I'm looking at this, I've got, thoughts and stories and whatnot just flying off my head that they could have taken this whole sequence and made it a full issue itself, just talking about the different games. So the fact that they were able to really combine all this emotion, all this energy, all this action in this 2-page spread was absolutely just outstanding.
Dude, somebody points a gun at me and gives me bracelets, I'm running. What I loved about this over other times we've seen this, and I've always loved the contest. I don't think there's been a bad version of the way this story's been told. So don't get me wrong when I'm saying this. I'm not diminishing anything that I've seen previously. I love the fact that we saw 2 people get shot. That was like, and Steve Trevor's like, what are you people doing? I really loved the sense of a different culture. A different sense of what it means to be a warrior, what honor means, how you eliminate to find out who the champion is of the contest. I really loved how this all played out. Diana, when she has that, when the mother's pointing the gun at her going, parry my shot, and you see her there with that determination. The movie, Batman v Superman, one thing that I think almost everybody consistently agrees, there are moments in there with Wonder Woman that were just downright spectacular. This was one of those moments where I was just like, whoa. I mean, that looked so cool on how it all happened. And that's something, when you set something up like that, that's something that you don't have to always show everything on camera. Sometimes it's what you don't see and what you imagine in your head that's really cool.
Oh, God, yeah. And I'm as you're talking, I'm agreeing with you, nodding in my head, and I'll tell you, anytime I've seen the story of the contest and read the bullets and bracelet was always something I was like, I don't know. It was something I was always like, especially like I remember seeing it in the old Wonder Woman TV show where I was just like, I don't know. But for me, the way they explained why they're doing this was absolutely perfect, especially because the gun is something they don't normally have. That's not their regular weapon. They're seeing this destruction, this destructive force that they're sending their champion out into. So this has to be the final test. And I love the fact that why this was used and why it became a part of it, and just as again leading everything up on how they analyzed and what they were thinking, how devastating this weapon is. So this has to be the final test. And I completely agree with you. That look on her face, that determination, because a lot of times throughout this, the early stuff, you see Diana as the young girl, as that kind of sweet and that innocence of her. Right there, you're seeing Wonder Woman and you're seeing that look of, okay, let's dance. Something we've seen a lot of times in the, in the variation stories. That right there was just an awesome, just etching of strength and determination in her face, in her eyes, her presence, everything. I was like, man, that was awesome.
I love the story of the invisible jet, like how that all came about. That it was one of Steve's planes that was slowly crafted into an invisible jet. They were using Amazonian, skill to put that in there. I really liked how that was put together.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. And again, it always is. Why does Wonder Woman have the jet? Where does the jet come from? Well, here they're showing you. Okay, this was Steve's jet that they used the magic and whatnot on it. So,
and the lasso being this kind of mystical like item totem, that the winner of the contest earns. Seeing Diana for the first time in the variation of the outfit that was really close to what we know to be a traditional Wonder Woman outfit, I thought was really well done, too. You want that. I like classic. I like seeing the classic. I love what they're doing with the modern outfit in the comics, too. But I like that this is kind of a hybrid of, getting back to the roots of the character and bringing it to the modern day version. Really smart and really sharp.
Oh, God, yeah. Big time. Again, this has been just hitting on all levels. And it's funny because it's not just the past stuff, but the present stuff as well. And it's both of these stories that are being told have been just those, man, that's incredible. And it's the same thing on where it's the story, but it's also the visual. And I love the fact that two books can look so different, because they do look different, but both can have that same type of hit me with that same type of emotional response that I'm saying this story is amazing, but oh my God, look at how cool this looks.
And the communication is strong. I don't know, if it's editorial, if it's the art teams. I don't know how that's all happening. And obviously the writers connected in the whole thing. I really do like that. You're right. The creative teams embrace their strengths and really enjoy them. But you still do have a feel like this is the same book. Even though there's two different art teams working in the two different eras, they really collaborate well. I don't know what's coordinating that. I like the concept behind Rebirth, that these creative teams and the writers have worked together to come up with a workflow that makes sense for the kind of story they're telling. I like that this isn't like the other books in its presentation. I don't want them all to be the same. None of them feel the same right now, and that part I think is great. They're really embracing what's great about the characters and developing books around that make sense for the story that they're telling. In many ways, it's funny when you allow for that. The books somehow all feel a lot more interconnected because of that energy than they would if they were all cookie cutter and following the same template, if that makes sense. It's all working right now. I want to talk about the creative team in issue 5 just because you've already started talking about like present day, and I know we can probably jump back to the past if we need to. But it's Greg Rook on writing, Liam Sharp on art, Laura Martin on colors, Jody Wynn letters, Liam Sharp and Laura Martin on the cover, Frank Chow and Niai Ruffino on the variant cover. Dave Wielkos is the associate editor. Chris Conroy and Mark Doyle are the editors. Wonder Woman, of course, still created by William Moulton Marston. Apologies for any name butchery there, because you are so right. These are just great-looking books, and I am so Wonder Woman happy right now. This is on my short list of favorite books. When this one's out, I have trouble not making this the first read. That's the quality this book's delivering for me right now. I'm really digging this presentation. I do think there's a big piece devoted to the quality of this. I love what's going on with the character in Batman v Superman. I thought she was the highlight of that movie. I'm super excited for the film coming. There's a lot of really positive energy on Wonder Woman. The only thing I'm missing right now is I want a TV series with her, because the character's really on my radar right now as being somebody I'm just really enjoying reading about. Very strong female character, very strong cast. That's the key part about this, the strong cast. Heroes, villains, even your ones like Cheetah, who are like this gray area. And Cheetah is a standout in this. I love that this isn't like we're rebooting again. No, there's been a progression here. Things have happened to Cheetah. We're seeing Cheetah going forward. And the year one stories, again, telling new stories that are enhancing the past. This lie, the lies, that whole concept of this particular present day arc really allows for some creative freedom to say everything you read's happened before, but not all of it's true. I like that. And I like that you embrace that and make it a part of this story. It's not that it didn't happen. It's Diana's been messed with. And we as the reader now are like her trying to figure out what the truth really is. That captivates me because I feel like I'm riding along with her. That's awesome.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's, Cheetah is one of those where when we first started talking about this and she had that dramatic, different look to her. And I was like, I was like, man, it does look cool. I don't know how I feel about it. But now, it's funny because now as the story's being told, you're seeing they've been messing with her. You know, we've got this god that's messing with her, and that is going to change how you look when you start having these supernatural forces compounding upon the original supernatural forces that created you. So I like the fact that she does have that different look now. I like how the fact that she's reacting and handling the world differently. And I think for me, that's something that in the past, when we were first talking about the previous issues, I was like, yeah, okay, it was kind of jarring for me. Well, now it's not only is it not jarring for me, now if they hadn't done something like that, I would be complaining about it, because I'm like, you know what? She needed to have those tweaks. She needed to have that, distortion in her life because of this stuff going on. So it was one of those things where I was so happy that we got it, and now we're getting the explanation. Now we're getting the rest of the story. And I think that for me has been part of the coolness of this Wonder Woman story being told. And again, it's the story being told by Rook, obviously, one of the guys on my list of people who I always love his storytelling. I love how he actually will take it from point A to point B, and your stuff from this what you might have been a throwaway part in part A ends up down on part Z being, oh my God, I can't believe that happened because of this. And he does that longevity in his storytelling, which for me is an absolute joy to have, because one, that's kind of adds to the rereadability. You can go back through and reread stuff once you have the payout saying, oh, let me go back and reread that, and oh wow, so he's one of those long-term storytellers. So he's absolutely wonderful in handling how this is getting played out.
Sasha Bordeaux Rebirth.
Yeah.
I am so happy about this because I loved this character. And it's a character that I want to see again. This is something that Rebirth's doing really well. It's not jamming characters in that have been missing. It's telling great stories where we're reintroducing characters in a way that's getting them back to the core of who they are. So for fans that read them previously, you're immediately familiar. For fans that haven't, you're getting introduced to them in a way that makes sense for the character. I was so glad to see her. Obviously, Greg Rucka introducing her makes a whole lot of sense, and I'm really glad this is happening. I'm intrigued. What's the scar from? What's going on with this character? I want to know more about Sasha Bordeaux, and that was a really cool part. I'd be interested for listeners, if anybody listening to this doesn't know who the character is, was that the same for you? Because she's a new character being introduced to you then if you don't know who she is. And I would love to see what your feelings are. But I loved her in Batman and Detective Comics back in the day. I loved her in Checkmate. Really glad to see her here.
Big time. Yeah, I'm echoing your sentiment, nodding my head, going, yes, 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 very excited for that. Again, everything you said, I want to know more. And I think that's been a general statement on the story being told. I always want to know more about these people. I want to know more about Steve's team, especially, when Diana does show up, she's got a familiarity with them and they have a familiarity with her. I want to see them interact. I want to see them, just this friendship forming. I want to see all, and it's so much, because a lot of times when you'll sit there and say I want more, it's because you're not getting enough. But in this case, it's I'm getting this wonderful story, but I'm being greedy, because I'm getting this fabulous story. I'm getting this, oh man, this is awesome. Give me more, feed me more. It's a greedy thing going. And I think that for me is something that pulls me in, because you have characters that they introduce just for one issue, for a couple panels. And you're like, okay, I wonder what his backstory is. Where's he come from? How did he get on Trevor's team? What kind of guy is he? Obviously these guys are all tough. Obviously they know what they're doing because they're on the level with Trevor, and you can see they can take a beating, because physically they took a pretty good beating and they gave as well as they got. But it's one of those things like, man, I want more. I got to see more of this. And I think that for me is the strength of a supporting cast. It's like whenever we talk Batman, I always want more, Jim Gordon. I always want more Alfred. When we talk, Superman, I always want more, Lois. I want more, of Little John. I want all that, more of these characters, because they feel real to me. They feel true. And I think that is something we're getting in, and just overload on the Wonder Woman stories, past and present.
Wait, you know what? I'm looking at the picture right now. So I'm looking at this. This is interesting. When he's looking at the picture that Steve has, is that Nicholas Scott's artwork? The picture.
Yeah.
So it's a different art team on this issue, but they're using the artwork from the year one team for the picture. I just think it's cool.
Oh my God, I never noticed that. Yeah, that is Nicola. That's obviously her artwork. And then again, oh man, that is awesome.
Isn't that cool? I really like that they did that. Great choice. And again, it connects the two different story arcs together in present day. I really liked that choice, and kudos to both creative teams for pulling that off, because I noticed it and I was like, wow, that's really, because it adds a connection to this is what she looked like back then. And I really like that. I like the choice. Very smart.
Oh, that is cool.
And really, you can see it when he's holding in his hand, too. Like in that Bwanda, hey. You see it there. I really loved that. That's a great attention to detail. One of my favorite lines in this, call it fate or destiny or the gods at work. But one thing I know after all these years, after the better part of a decade being a friend to each of them, when one of them is in need, the other one will always be there. Boy, talk about the fact that I'm Lois and Clark happy right now. I loved Diana and Clark together. Don't get me wrong. I'm a believer. Now I'm all Diana and Steve. Like, yes. I have completely jumped ship.
Big time. I know, me too, man. Again, everything you're saying, I'm echoing. But, yeah, I really want to see these two kids together. I really want to see. But it's funny because, I talked about I want more. I want to see what happened. What was that piece that broke them up? Because you have this initial connection. I want to see the romance grow. I want to see it happen. And then I want to see what was the thing that kept them apart, that kept them separated. But it still created this bond, this connection, this friendship.
Yeah, and you're right. That's one of the keys there. It's how did they get to here? I love, though, that they've already crafted this interest in me to not only see the development of that relationship in year one, but I'm already a believer in the relationship.
Yeah.
And not because Diana and Steve have always been together, because in the recent New 52 storytelling, they made me a believer of Diana and Clark. I mean, really was team Diana and Clark, to the point where I loved the Lois and Clark Superman kind of relationship, but it was working for me in the New 52. Man, they've completely changed my mind. That's good writing. That's good artwork. That's good emotional storytelling when you've got so much buy-in from me now that I'm on board on that relationship. I like that Steve looks older now. Steve's been through a lot, and he looks more like the seasoned warrior who's seen a lot of battle, who's been through a lot of things. Time has clearly passed, but he still looks like, he's a guy who's in the game, and he looks impressive. Very good use of Steve Trevor and making him into this character that you believe, because I've always loved the character of Steve Trevor. I think he's a great character. It's very similar to Lois Lane. His presence is really dependent on the use of the creative team on the character. He's one of those characters who can either fade into the background and just be kind of, oh yeah, he's got a part of Wonder Woman history. That's kind of neat that they're acknowledging it. Or he's a dominant part of the storytelling and really a partner to what's going on with Diana. I like the way that they're crafting this partnership here. It really adds a sense of, I really want to see Diana come and rescue him. I like what's going on here. I like the danger that's present for Steve's team. I like the idea that, we're gonna, hey, your buddies over there, they're gonna be sacrificed. We've got other plans for. You're gonna be the host. As this whole thing's going on, there's this real sense of danger that's going on, and you're like, well, where is Diana right now? Can somebody show us a map like they do in Indiana Jones? Because I really want to know. I want to follow the bouncing dot to see if Diana is close enough that this is gonna not happen. Because I really don't want anything horrible happening to Steve. And on top of that, it'd be really nice if she could rescue his amazing friends.
Mm-hmm. And rescue Barbara.
Yes.
She's got a busy plate right now. And again, it's everything you're saying, I'm agreeing with you completely. And I'm loving the fact that you and I both are seeing this and having the same kind of very similar experience on our reading of this, because I'm loving just the how Diana's going on, and she's showing up for the rescue, but Trevor's going to be doing some of the fighting. It's not just going to be, he's not just a male version of the damsel in distress. He is a partner.
Yeah.
There is something more. And those are those great Lois Lane stories that we've had where we see why this man with godlike powers would love this mortal woman. You're seeing why Diana would, be in this relationship with Trevor. It's funny because there's always been an obvious why, Trevor would want to be with Wonder Woman. She's really hot. But there is that, I love the fact that in this story, they're crafting more beyond it. It's not just a physical attraction. There is a connection in personality and spirit and who they are, and I'm loving the fact that we're seeing that. And then again, even present day, we're still seeing this connection, this friendship, but it's not just, Diana towards Steve. She's got her friend Barbara that she is trying to help. And every time that Cheetah starts kind of taking over, Diana's there calling her Barbara Ann, just trying to remember, you are that person. You've got to push this back. And I love the one moment where Cheetah's saying, she's losing the memory of who she was. Dr. Barbara Ann Minerva, she was worthy once. And Diana's quick to say, she still is. You still are. I love the fact that Diana isn't giving up on her friend, and she's trying to push her friend to remember who she is and be that human that is inside there. And I love that, again, so many times where you're like, it's combination of the warrior, it's combination of, the diplomat. We've always talked about that Wonder Woman's true great power is her compassion and her love, and that is the thing that gives her strength. Clark is hope. Bruce is, Bruce is Bruce. Diana has always been that compassion and that love. She can, knock you into next Tuesday, but there is just that strength of her it's not just a physical violence.
I know you're a big fan, like I am, of a creative use of paneling. And I loved how we have these like sinewy, like vine-like things that are coming off of that creature at the altar that are being used to separate certain panels. But what I like about this is they don't overdo it. They use traditional panels and then mix that in for a sense of mood and tone. Sometimes you can overdo that and then it gets lost. It's kind of like, well, that's what they're doing. That's kind of their theme. Cool, it's a theme. I like that it goes between that and then glass later on is used for creative paneling. I like the mixture of it. It just shows some creativity. It was something that I found and appreciated because it wasn't overdone. It was done at points where, like, hey, this is a great page for it. This one, let's stick with traditional because we really want people focusing on some of the other things that are going on. I liked that there was an artistic opportunity to really draw us into the need for the page and the need for what was happening on that page. Those choices, I don't know, I mean, obviously it's just a very creative process. I like that different artists handle it differently. I do. It just kind of, I find it interesting. And I liked the choices in this book because they stood out for me as being something, it's a unique experience. I like what they did there. It really made this issue stand out as something special to me.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. Again, it's funny, the artwork, where we were raving last time, I'm still just as impressed by this artwork.
Agreed.
And again, it's the, you talk about, with you, I agree, the creative usage of panels, but also just a lot of those background sequences where you just look and you see how the viney terrain as they're getting closer to, the fortress and, just the going when they were traveling through the jungle, when Trevor is in Captain, you just start looking at the background stuff, how it's got this much darker, creepier styling to it than we had in the last issue, which had a very positive and bright because they're on Paradise Island, but here they're on the opposite of Paradise Island. They're, in a world of hurt, and I love how you get that emotional feeling from that, and even from Diana, you're seeing a darkness over her, but there is still the light. There is still that brightness. There is still the Wonder Woman aspect of her. And I love just how they're able to dance with, the coloring where they've got heavy shading, heavy, darker, richer, earther tones, but it's still not like they didn't overdo it where it's, you're losing the emotion. It's one of those things that I'm really impressed with the coloring on both books. The colorists on both books are working so well with the artist, to actually really give us this great emotional response.
The page is my favorite. Is the one. It's the tree where Cheetah's up in the upper part of the tree.
Yeah.
Diana's right below her, and they're looking towards where their quest is taking them. And that I like that journey. It's something that I liked in year one. I referenced it. That kind of fantasy aspect of a sense of a place to travel in and things to see and wonders to experience. That, it's kind of a cool thing when you're reading a title called Wonder Woman. Like, there's a sense of adventure to this that like really makes me excited. And there's a slight pulpy feel to that in a good way. I generally mean that as like I really feel like I'm on an adventure with these two. And when Diana's standing there and they're surveying the terrain and looking there, I like the color work is fantastic. The line work, it just looks really sharp. Like, I want to see this. And it's just a page that stood out for me as being like really majestic. I love Diana's outfit in it. I like the sense of it. Like, if you look at the one that's in year one, there's a sense of her just getting started. Here, she's more seasoned. And there's just something about the posture, the way the costume looks. The duality of both books really adds a sense of time progression again that I really find engaging in this. It just looks right in both cases. Great job to both our teams on that part.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
So this part is when we start seeing, we go back to Sacha Bordeaux, we see Steve kind of going through his plight, and we see the beginning of the ritual. I like that the ritual felt creepy. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is one of those movies that some people love it, some people not so much. I've always liked it because I remember as a kid watching that when that sequel came out and not realizing when I was a kid that was actually a prequel. It was before the first movie. But when that movie came out, there was that whole sequence where the guy reached in and pulled out the heart and that type of thing. There was a creep factor to those kind of rituals, and that's always stuck with me. Whenever you're dealing with like these magic rituals, that happens. When Steve gets punched by like the wolf creature, and you see that guy pull out that paint, and he's drawing all kinds of like weird artwork on Steve. There's few things that like give me the creeps. I love horror movies. There's a short list. Movies like The Omen are the ones that like I kind of go, wow, that's pretty creepy. When those type of things come in. This kind of stuff, when you get into that like voodoo kind of magic where it's, people are putting things inside you like people and demons and things. That's one area where I'm probably the most afraid would be the idea of something controlling me. And I love the way this played out because there's a real creep factor. And that, again, goes to the artwork and color toning choices on this one. There's a sense of foreboding here that really, really works.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I'm glad you did the Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom, because I was thinking the same thing with with him, being cut up there and they're painting on him. And I loved, that. But one of the scene I loved was when Diana shows up there and she's busting out the guys
yes.
Christopher, David, hey, and she goes back goes back to that light, friendly look to her face, and they're like, "Hey, Diana, hey, yo," and you see that connection. You see that she knows them, and they know her. But I really love the fact that just how that played out, and how that physically looked. Because we go from her having on the one page really cool, butt kicking Wonder Woman moments where she's kicking, laying down the smackdown, to, "Oh, hey guys, how you doing? Happy to see you." And I love just that duality. Again, the duality of who Diana is, really played out in really two cool pages.
Here's the part that I love when they're talking about the rescue. It kind of starts off like they're kind of, assuming that their fate is what's going to be. I was kind of hoping you were going to rescue us, David. And here I was counting on you, Chris. And then just wait for it. I love that those were panels. It was chronological patterns. And you see like the glow from the bracelets just in two of the panels, then you see her running towards them with this determination. And then, to your point, to the emotion shift, the determination, her and Cheetah fighting in the battle there. I mean, there's nothing but warrior there. Then the light switch. It is a light switch. Where's Steve? The cliffhanger here. I can't wait for the next issue. Year one, present day. I don't care. I want more Wonder Woman. This is a book I am captivated by. Every 2 weeks is really working for me. This pacing, I hope that it's something that they're able to maintain. I don't care that it's two creative teams. If you're delivering these kind of creative teams, I don't care if both creative teams are telling stories in present day and alternating. I don't, whatever they've got to do after this whole year one present day concept's over to keep this going. I like getting Wonder Woman with this frequency. I like the story moving forward. I don't care if it's continues to be flashbacks in present day, whatever. I love this. This is really, really great storytelling. I'm having trouble right now deciding what my favorite Rebirth book is. This is a contender. Very much a contender for me.
Oh, big time. Yeah. And I it's funny because I try to avoid, answering that question when people say, what's your favorite issue? What's your favorite book? Because it really is the one I'm reading at the time. And it's something that Rebirth has really done well for me, where it's like they're knocking it out of the park. But Wonder Woman is one of those where, they have that whole list of that when you say, okay, you gotta change, life has changed dramatically. You can only get 5 issues, 5 comics. And normally when you get stuff like that, I usually go with team dynamics because that way I always feel like I get more bang for the buck. But Wonder Woman will be one of those when I start whittling down the numbers. Wonder Woman's going to be one of those on the list because of this story we're getting, because of how, as I said, the jumping back and forth between the two between the two universes, between the two timelines. I'm like, this is something that I was like, man, this is a story that has been something that I'm really deeply loving.
Do you have books right now in Rebirth? Because before I want to go talk about Blue Beetle Rebirth next, just because it's a new title that came out and another attempt to relaunch this book, and I really want to talk about this. But you mentioned things like whittling down numbers. That's something as fans we do for a variety of different reasons, right? Sometimes it's financial. Other times it's just because due to time. That like I'm stockpiling certain titles, and not because of quality. I'm just never going to get to it. And those type of things. And as a fan, I have like a pretty loose amount of stockpiling I'll do, because there's so many books that have buzz, or I know that I genuinely enjoy the concept, that the economics for me is not money, it's time. I don't get to them, and it's not because they're poor quality. It's just I don't get to them because I just don't have the time for them. But I keep collecting them in hopes that I'm going to, and I know when I start with a book that I'm interested in that's good, I'm going to keep going. So... And the completionist in me wants to read the whole story. So there's books that I stockpile for that purpose. Out of Rebirth, is there anything right now, and just being honest, where you're like looking at like this one, if I had to purge, I could purge? Because I'm having trouble with that. That's kind of the interesting thing on this one. Not that I'm looking to purge anything, because I'm not. I'm going to genuinely keep reading all these. But if I had to right now, if I had to chop down this line as it is right now, I would have a hard time knowing where to start.
Oh God, yeah. The Rebirth line itself will be I don't know where I could cut. It's because every single one I'm picking up, I'm loving. It's something that there's been, and I've had recently, you and I both have had some really crazy stuff going on in our lives.
Sure.
That I'm not able to sit down and read everything. And there's been some stuff that are getting stockpiled. Like it was the Wonder Woman. I actually stockpiled 4 and 5.
You should be ashamed.
So I ran out of time, so I was able to sit down and read boom, boom, back to back. So which actually was kind of neat, in having going from the past and then the present. So that was kind of a cool experience. But it's so I'm finding I had to stockpile a lot of this stuff, and Blue Beetle was one that when it came out I didn't initially jump to it because I didn't have you run out of time. But there's never been even a notion in my head that I would get rid of any of these books right now, because I know once I read them, like, oh, this is awesome, this is great. Like Aquaman, a book that I'm like, my God, this is great, and and I'm loving how that story is progressing. The Beetle, this was a really cool story. That this was a great, kickoff and beginning for me, and it's something like, I didn't read it when it first came out, but now I'm like, yeah, this is great. I'm so glad I kept it. So glad I did pick it up. So glad I'm reading it now. And I know I've been constantly ordering all the books, so I have them, but it's, this is one where, as I said, every Wednesday I jump out, I just purchase all the digital of all of the Rebirth without sight unseen. I just go through, boom, 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 done. Because I know eventually I'm going to get to them. I know we're eventually going to talk about them, and if not, this is an easier way for me to read these stories right now on my computer as opposed to having the books.
I know reading-wise for me, if it's got a Rebirth logo, I'm jumping to it right away. And it's funny, one of the things over the years, we've been doing this over 10 years now, and one of the common accusations, you guys just love everything. That's not true. There's a lot of books that I really like, There's a lot of books that I think are good. I really have like traditionally I have a three-tiered system. I have these books that knock my socks off. Wonder Woman, that we just talked about, is that book right now for me. Wonder Woman's in that category firmly. It is on the short list of maybe my favorite book right now. There's other books, though, in my reading list. I read a lot of comics that I think are just, that's really a good title. That's below that. It's something that I'm really digging, but it will be a book that I will read after the favorites. Because I read my favorite books first. That's kind of my process. So, and I really kind of equate, like, what is your system of knowing what are your favorites and where you would cut? My cut goes off of the order I read things in. If I had to cut and purge, it's the order that I read things in. So it'd be the books that are, obviously knocking my socks off that I would fight. I would sell friends of mine, starting with you.
Oh, thanks, Phil.
Well, hey, dude, I want comics.
Well, and here's a funny thing. I'm okay with that. I'm like, yeah, okay, Sorry, Jim, sold you into slavery. Like, what? Like, well, yeah,
but this is what
okay.
I appreciate about you. No,
I understand, man.
We've all been there. I've had times in my life where I've had to go down to reading 2 titles. It's the hardest thing to do as fans, right? We joke around about this. You always joke around about selling blood and things like that. No, we've all done those things. I've sold big parts of my collection to maintain the ability to read at different times new books. Sometimes you do what you got to do to keep reading. When I look at Rebirth right now, I don't have the books falling so much into those categories that I normally do of, a book that's like knocking my socks off, a book that's really good, and a book that's just good. Like, it's a good read. I'm glad I'm reading it right now. I'm not through the roof on it. If I had to make cuts, I'd probably start with this category. With Rebirth, I'm not having that yet. Some of that sure is the newness, right? Anytime something new's on there, you get that initial excitement to them. But what I'm finding is as the books that are out, we got books now that are into issues 4 and 5 out there. I'm finding that excitement's not dwindling. That excitement's just continuing. I don't know if we're going to get to it this episode. Probably not. Well, actually, you haven't gotten caught up yet on Green Arrow. Green Arrow is one of my favorite books, too. That's in the contention as far as just being a top-quality book. And actually, that's worth mentioning right now. A book I jump to right away when it comes out is Green Arrow. I love the work that they're doing in Green Arrow. That's a title that's up in that upper top tier. I don't have many books that are avoiding that area right now. Blue Beetle's an interesting one. This is the one that just kicked off. Brand new out of the starting gate. I'm going to shout out the creative team right now, and I want to talk about this one with you because this is another attempt to get this book launched, and I'm thrilled they're doing it. This is by Keith Giffen and Scott Collins on the story, Giffen on the script, Collins on the art and cover. Romulo, I really feel bad because this colorist is really doing a great job right now. It's Fajardo Jr. on colors. Josh Reed on letters, Cully Hamner on the variant cover, which is really cool because he was part of the original creative team. Jim Chadwick and Dave Wall are the editors. I am so glad they relaunched this. And this is a great example of, once again, how you do Rebirth. They've put Ted Kord into the whole thing as this mentor figure, but they also took Jaime's family, his personal family and also his friends, that family group of 3 friends, Jaime and Brenda, and of course his best buddy, and put them back together again. I feel like I'm hanging out with characters because I really have loved this character. I think he's a great character. I've grown very, very fond of him. I'm hoping this time around this works because this first issue kicking off was just a lot of fun for me. This book feels a lot to me like Marvel Spider-Man, and what I mean by that is it's when you go to the core of what I'm liking about the new Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and what I love about classic Peter Parker, and what I love about books like Invincible, it's that fun factor. This is a character that he feels young. There's a sense of that word wonder again and excitement. This is different, though. Like, it's cool. He's got a bug inside him that, yes, it does really cool things, but there's a creep factor to that, but there's a payoff as well in that he can do these amazing, neat things. I love the artistic choice for that costume. I think this is really working for me. Having Scott Collins on artwork in this book is really working for me as well. I love the opening page where you see Ted Kord kind of swinging out of the bug up at the top and Jaime fighting down below with the villains, who I love that the villains feel like they're quirky and they should be a part of this series. Thematically, this whole thing is really working for me. And what it does well is it kind of brings you up to speed on the Blue Beetle story if you've never read it before. but also adds a whole little twist with bringing Dr. Fate into the story. You thought this was all alien stuff? Guess what? That's a smokescreen. This is really magic. I love it. I love it. Very cool.
Yeah, and Jaime's buddy is Paco, by the way. You drew a mental blank, and it's funny because I kept calling him Pedro throughout the whole book. And then like during my second read through, I was like, it's not Pedro, it's Paco. Jim, you're an idiot. And it was, just something for some reason, because Brenda immediately remembered and all that stuff. But with some reason, I had a mental block on Paco. But again, I agree everything you're saying about how it's cool that they're bringing back his team and that they know about the Beetle and that they know about the bug, but it's the fact that his family doesn't know, and he's got to keep that from his folks, and he's got this really crazy secret identity, and he's this kid who wants to be a kid. He doesn't want to be the Blue Beetle. He wants to get this thing off him, but Ted's like, no, man, this is what you got to do. And that great. I love how we're getting some of the coolness that is Ted Cord. Because he's one of those characters that I didn't learn about until he had died, until everything that had happened that killed him off and that whole stuff. So when I first read about his, read the issue with his death, I didn't have any type of connection to that. I'm like, oh, okay, they killed off a guy. But then as you go back and you read the trade and you go back and you read the collected stuff and you start understanding who Ted Cord was, I'm like, oh man, that guy was awesome. So I am so happy that we're getting that Ted. We're getting that guy who's kind of a little bit of he's kind of a fanboy of the superhero genre. He's kind of one of us who happens to have the technology and who has the ability to actually operate in this universe. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that he doesn't lose that fun, that energy. And then you got Jaime, who's this kid who also still has that same type of energy, but he's like, hey man, I don't know if I want to do this. Come on, give me a break here. And there's just those kind of that, it's the buddy. I don't want to say a buddy cop thing because it's not really that. And we've used Spider-Man analogy a lot of times, which I think that same type of youthful energy, that Spidey had, especially some of the really cool classic Spider-Man stories that pulls into, that taps into that. So I think we got that going, but there's just this really neat vibe. And I'm very happy with what this Blue Beetle is doing. And I'm hoping to God it survives because I can see this character growing and this character becoming more of the hero. And I'd love to see Ted actually have, some more of a role in the process and having them, the Team Beetle concept. I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going to play out.
What I like about him too, that he's a normal, well-adjusted kid. And the reason why I'm saying that is I'm glad they didn't go the nerdy kid route, because here's the thing. I love that in Spider-Man. I think that works really well. But I don't want that here. I want the fun factor. I like when he's in the costume, there's a fun factor to it. I like the creep factor. I like this is normal, well-adjusted kid that now happens to have this scarab in his back. And that he wants it out, but there's also that part of him that finds the fun in it too. I like the duality of that. Like, it works really well. Like, I would want it out of me too, but you certainly can appreciate the things you can do while you're doing them as well. That part's really, really cool.
And he steps up when he's needed. I think that's the cool part about, the way they're playing Jaime, where he does want it out of him. He wants to be free of this. He wants to be a normal kid again. But when Ted Cord calls, he's like, hey, we got this going on. There's this crazy meta challenge in the thing. They need the Beetle. And he's like, they need the Beetle. And he's got it. And he doesn't want to do it, but he knows he has to do it. It's the whole, with great power comes great responsibility. The kid has accepted his role. He knows what he's got to do.
Right. And that's something that I think is very interesting to me, is the fact that he knows what he wants to do. I like all those pieces, everything you just said. One of the things I do want to mention, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, I just want to take a little step back, because we talked about the friendship group again. This was actually one of those that really was in need of a reboot, the friendship group. Yeah. Because I think they took Paco down a path that I'm glad we're getting back to the friendship, because the friendship between these three is pretty important to me. I like that they feel like normal kids and that friendship's important to them. I like that they kind of poke fun at each other and those type of things. I like that I feel like I'm hanging out with them. That, to me, that friendship bond and traveling along with them, like we're walking along the railroad tracks with them and hanging, when danger happens to them, makes it far more, you care more. Because you feel like you've been hanging with your buddies for a little bit, and then, uh-oh. And I like that. part of this book, I'm glad we're going back to those roots. And I think that's this is one where it really needed a rebirth issue. I like what they did. I like the new things that they put in. To your point about Ted Cord, I like the magic twist. That's really neat. That part really works for me, but I really felt the friendship needed a reboot, needed a part of this.
Yeah, and again, the banter, because you talk about just there is that friendship banter going on where, especially just the vibe between Brenda and Paco makes you wonder, are they going to go that route with those two? Does she have a thing for Jaime, but he's clueless to realize it? What's going to happen, with because I know in the past they've had some kind of crazy emotional stuff going on between the three of them where they are such good friends, but they are, they are teenagers with hormones running wild. So there's going to be, feelings, and there's going to be something else there. And I love the fact that we're getting already kind of like the hints of that, especially Brenda and Paco. You're seeing just the fact that they keep butting heads. She gets mad at him for saying "bless you" when she sneezes. I love the fact that that argument that she's had, that she gets angry over the fact that he says that. And he's like, "What? I'm just being polite. That's what you say when someone sneezes. It's just something you say." I love the fact that they had that really lengthy argument. That was a couple pages long, multiple panels, and I thought that for me was just this really cool personal human moment.
Well, a very good friend of mine is kind of anti-religion right now, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm kind of a big one that, like, we all got to have our own beliefs, right, and our own kind of thought processes and what works and what doesn't work for us, and I'm pretty tolerant of everyone's opinion. It was funny because this is somebody who I really respect, so that I consider myself to still have the same religious beliefs that I always have. I'm not practicing like I used to be, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I think that's maybe where I've changed a bit, but I tend to be very open-minded to a wide variety of viewpoints and those type of things. But it is interesting. We were at the table and having some pretty hearty debates about religion in general, and I really liked the fact that when I read the sequence, I was connecting with that. I'm like, we just had a debate like this recently with somebody who I greatly admire and respect, and still do. It's funny how you can have those debates. You and I do this on the show at times too, where we will debate things in comics, where you've got something, you saw it one way, and you're real passionate about it. And there's times where you're owning it, and you can't believe my viewpoint, and I can't believe yours, and we will dig our heels in. And in the end, it's not really that one of us is right or wrong. It's more that we're spirited about what we believe in. It's very real. This is written very real, and that's one of the cool things about this. It feels like real friends having a real debate. I like that you pointed out that sequence because I found that. Charming always seems like a pretentious word when you're using it, but I did find it charming. I'm like, this is a charming sequence. I'm like, I really enjoyed this. It's a fun little sequence. So there's certain words where it's like, I want to take back that word because I think it's a good word for this thing.
We're going to reclaim it.
Yes, we're going to say that it's okay to say charming without it being something snooty. And I really like it for this one because this was really a charming sequence. And I loved it. Okay, time out, guys. Like, enough's enough. I've had enough of this if you two haven't.
Because they were even before they were on screen, they were still doing that argument back and forth. And it's funny because they're each like a dog with a bone there. They're locked in on what they're saying. And, and it's funny because, you're saying charming, I say human, I say realistic. It's One of those things where in these, stories, I love having moments where you have these realistic human moments that, you could see anybody else having outside that. I think that for me has got to be something that has to be in the really good stories. You can have a cool, superhero story and just it having to be all about flying around, blowing things up and big explosions and cool looking, artwork. And yeah, that's awesome. But when you have those little moments like that where the creative, force takes time to give us that human reaction, that's where you start getting that connection to the person. That's where you start knowing who these people are, and like the little stuff when they're leaving, when, Jaime's like, yeah, okay, I'll go. His friends giving him that hug, saying, hey, be careful. Yeah, don't die or anything, It's that kind of, again, it brings it, it brings an emotional response. It gives you something solid, something real, in this crazy fantasy world. This right here, this moment is very real.
I love the beetle, the bug, the ship, the craft. That was one of those. I know it's also in Watchmen, that owl craft, is the same kind of thing. I really love the design of it. It looks cool. Obviously I grew up loving vehicles. As a kid, I loved the Spider-Mobile. I loved the Batmobile. I had Mego's Bat Bus, the Batmobile Crime Lab thing. It was black with a yellow top. Figures Toy Company has like gained the rights to make those again for their reproductions of Migos. I'm gonna buy one just because we hit a point in high school where we blew it up with M80s. And I'm like sitting here right now saying, man, I was an idiot.
Right now, everybody listening to this podcast just went, oh!
Right.
You got to grab your chest, say, no, Norge.
Because I was at that stage where it's like, I'm getting older now. I don't need this stuff. And now I'm older and I need this stuff. So, but I like that I can get a new one now with all the stickers and everything on it like that. So it's funny with collectibles like that. I like I'm just as happy with reproductions as the originals. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like if I saw a mint original, I would be really eyeing it right now and grabbing it. But I like that I'm just as happy with a reproduction because I want the visual of it. I guess as I've gotten older, that's one area where I've changed. I used to look at things. And it wasn't when I say with the justification, it wasn't a shallow thing. I really liked the idea that, wow, these things might have some worth later in life. Now I'm mid 40s. I'm not really looking to make these things as an investment. I'm looking to actually recapture some of the things from my childhood and have them. I had a talking Batman alarm clock. I ended up finding it on eBay because mine had broken, not because of I didn't blow it up or anything like that. It was it just broke. It was from use probably more than anything else. There was a working one on eBay, and it was Batman and Robin, classic Batman and Robin. My mom got it, I think, from Avon or something. You put a battery in the back, and when it hit the time, it would be time to get up and out of bed. Good boy, Robin. Very well said. And all, which sounds like a very cheesy thing, but when you were a kid and it was your Batman fan, I'm talking about when I was a little kid, that was absolutely the coolest thing in the world. Like I liked waking up in the morning because Batman told me to. So I mean, it was like a really cool thing. So I ended up grabbing some of that stuff. So there's certain things that I have a lot of nostalgia for that I'm interested in grabbing again because of that. My holy grail, the one I'm really looking for, is the Mego Wayne Foundation. That piece I'm looking to grab. And it just goes kind of back to when I saw the bug in this, and there really is a connection back to this comic on that. It took me back to that place. I love gadgets and gizmos, and to this day, I'm a tech director. That comes from comics. That comes from the gadgets and gizmos of my favorite superheroes. That comes from seeing their buildings and their fortresses and their bases and, all the cool tech that was in those things. The bug is no exception to that. I've seen so many variations of this over the years. It still gives me that sense of, man, I want to fly around in that thing. With as far as our tech has come, we don't have like flying crafts like that look superhero-y that we can have yet. I would be the first one to buy it. Like, this is how I want to go to work every day. I want to go in a giant bug. I want to fly to work. I want to land. I want to get out and go inside. I really would take, if I had one of those, it would not be sitting mint, slabbed, or anything like that. It would be used daily. I would be flying around from place to place. It would have some form of alarm system because nobody's stealing it. But you better believe I would be taking that to work every single day, rain or shine. Because it would be super cool.
It's funny because you mentioned that one of my regular searches I do periodically online are flying cars. And just that whole, and we've got some stuff out there. Basically, it's kind of the drones, but imagine a larger size that a person can ride like a motorcycle. And there's a couple companies out there that have pretty good working models on those where they've got some pretty good prototypes. So I'm hoping in my lifetime I'll be able to fly one of those things just because, like you, I had the superhero action figures had the equipment, the vehicles, reading comics. You see that, the Shield flying cars, the Fantastic Four car, just all those different stuff that you see in you read in the comic books, you see in the cartoons and whatnot, and you really just want to have that. And to your point, I loved how we got to see that Beetlemobile, his flying beetle cave, but also something I thought was a really cool way to what ended up happening. And again, this is something I don't know if this was by design or if it was just by happen chance, where you've got, Ted Kord and his Beetle, you flip the page, and then you've got Jaime, full page panel, him in his Beetle armor flying. And I loved how, it's kind of like old school, new school, with Jaime's got some really slick lines, and just his armor looks really cool. And I love how this really just pops. Especially because, you think about, look at the background. They really did high, bright colors. Bam, he's right there. But then you've got a full background on the city landscape, but they kind of wash the colors. So it's a little bit darker. Not darker, it's a little bit faded. So that really accentuates that blue, because blue is one of those powerful colors. And I love how they did that.
I do too, and I like the "Who's the Idiot Now" when you see him there with that cool visual. Is a fun factor to it in this, and that I think is really great. There's nothing wrong with just having fun in a comic. You know what I mean? And it's not slapstick fun. It's fun in the sense like, I want to be that hero. I want to travel around. I want to do that. Not every hero should have that. Some books need that. I like that this Flash is another book where I get that kind of sense that I'm talking about, and I really like that about the Flash as a character. I like that the Blue Beetle feels different than the Flash. And it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier on. We've got, a number of great Rebirth books that are out there right now, but they're all just a little unique from each other. Blue Beetle's another one of those, like no other book that I'm reading in Rebirth right now feels like this. It felt like another breath of fresh air coming out of the Rebirth lineup. Another book that is like, ooh, I'm not reading anything like this. Yeah, I'm digging this. This is way cool. Yay, Blue Beetle. And it was that sequence. That was another picture. When I saw that one, I was like, great single page, full page shot that just really captured everything that I'm really liking about this. I like that the bugs are carrying the package behind them.
Yeah.
That was really, really cool. Cool use of tech. Because, again, this made this sense of, I want to be that guy. This guy needs to be a video game. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet. A video game company needs to make a good, really good Blue Beetle game. Because when you take a look at, and it needs to not, I don't want it to be, and I don't want to take this in insult because I love Telltale games. I don't want it to be a point-and-click game. I want it to be a full-blown action game. Like, what's going on. Like, they just did Ratchet and Clank, a redo of that on the PlayStation 4. I want it to be that kind of game, an adventure game like that. The old platformers like Mario and that type of thing. Blue Beetle's ready and primed for that because all of his gadgets and tech are things that, along the way, it would be great storytelling-wise that Jaime learns to do new things with the suit. Then you can do it in the game. Right. And I think this story's ready-made for an open world where it'd be fun to run around and be the Blue Beetle. And this needs to be a game. I mean, this really needs to be a game. I would buy it in an instant, and I would tell everyone they should buy it if it's good. And I would actually take a look at Ratchet and Clank as my example. That's the kind of game it should be, and it needs to be that quality.
I agree with you. I agree. That's and it's funny because whenever we talk Blue Beetle, that always comes up with us. And that's something that I think it's one of the things about the character that because we've had some really great Blue Beetle stories, especially with Jaime as the character. We've had this kind of emotional response a lot of times with him, and he's gotten some pretty good runs. And he always, in the end, usually it's something always happens, whether sales or whatnot or story, and he just kind of drifts off. So he always starts off really strong like this, and this is one of those things where I'm hoping we can keep this energy going. We can keep this going because it's, again, this story has that wonderful blend of comedy, but not, it's you said it before, it has that some level of slapstick, but it doesn't take away from the seriousness, especially with these two idiots that we got for the villains. One, misspelling Blue Beetle. Why they misspell it? Well, they're either idiots or they just don't care. And it's one of those things, as you get to know them, you still don't know for a fact, because there is a level of idiocy with them, but there's also a level of strategery with them where they, do plan ahead and they do lay down some game plans. They really did play Jaime really well in fighting this, where they set him up. They've got plenty of human shields to use. They've got no problem killing some innocent people here, and they're playing off of the hero, mindset that protect the innocent mindset.
I agree. Rack and Ruin, I want to talk about them as villains, because it's a great example of, a lot of times when you create new villains, they seem kind of watered down. There's not a lot of depth to them. I love that these characters, they looked like one thing. It's like, oh, okay, they're red shirts. The introductory villain where your kind of focus should be more on Blue Beetle. And I would say, for the first half, it kind of felt like that. I love that as the story went on, and you got to see them actually fighting Blue Beetle, that completely changes. Because you see that the characters have that whole little twist where the robots have broke them in half, but then all of a sudden these two start rebuilding each other, and they come back into the battle, and the trick is, now Jaime's got this desperation of, how do I keep them from reforming?
Yeah.
And I like that it took that concept that I like in Terminator 2. It's like, wait, he's reforming in front of me. What's going on here? And brought this into this story. It added an intensity to it. This was an issue that started off, we talked about how it was kind of quaint with the friends kind of getting together and that type of thing, and had a gradual build and got more and more exciting and fun as it went on. And then there was like this really great action sequence with a character who I'm really caring about at this stage and I'm having fun with. And I want to see him succeed against villains that I'm like, oh, he's going to take them out with no problem. And lo and behold, that isn't what happened. And I really loved that part of this whole storyline. I liked that required the mentor then. That Ted didn't have the immediate answer. They had to work together to start working out what to do with these characters. That part was really great.
Yeah, and the fact that Beetle really didn't win this fight. He just survived it. That for me was something that was kind of neat in here, where, Ted drops the Beetle smoke gas, whatever he's dropping. And, the bad guy, they realize, hey, there's another player in the game. Let's fall back. And that's when they leave. So Jaime didn't really win this fight. He just happened to make it through and survive it, because they were winning. He's got these body parts hitting him as they're reassembling, but they were still, it wasn't even like just waiting for it. They were actually laying a beat down on him. And, it was just one of those kind of miracle things that he made it out of there. And I thought that for me is something that when you've got a hero who may lose the fight, there's a possibility here. And I think that, again, adds to a level of what can happen.
Yeah, and that part is really great about this book. At the end we see the ant again, which she was brought in from the original Blue Beetle series. But again, there's this sense of now he's talking to somebody. That won't do it all. She has plans for Blue Beetle, but now realizing there's a mentor in there, and with the twist that we know about magic with her background now, and seeing what we see at the end with her, adds a whole new layer and twist to this whole thing. They've put back in play all of the things I loved about the original Blue Beetle series when this kicked off last time, when it originally kicked off with this character. It's put all of those things back into play, again, with a twist. So this story now is got the roots of everything I've dug about it, and I'm anxious to see where this goes. I can't wait for Blue Beetle #1. This is a great example of how you launch a book.
Oh, yeah. Amen. Completely agree with you. This was, again, a lot of these, especially when they do these rebirth issues, where it's kind of like it's the introduction of who the character is, what's going to happen. Issue #1 is going to go right off of this and continue the story going. I'm definitely into this, and I'm hooked into this, and I want to see where this plays out, and again, I'm hopeful that we're going to get some cool Beetle stories, and I think the fact that we have both Jaime and Ted in the story is really going to help out the story, especially because you've got the people who are the longtime Ted Kord fans who maybe they weren't completely behind Jaime. Well, guess what? You still have Ted Kord, and he is being Ted Kord, but you also have Jaime, and you still have Jaime's crew. You've got those characters that had that really great history and that rich, story that was really awesome. Well, guess what? We still have that. So we've got the best of both worlds in this story, and I want to see where it plays out.
It's I said we were going to stop at an hour and a half. I lied. Because there's a book we both want to talk about that we need to talk about, Aquaman #5.
Oh,
and Dan Abnett is the writer. Felipe Briones, artist, and I apologize ahead of time. Gabe Altieb, and I know I butcher his name, colorist. Pat Brousseau on letters. Brad Walker, Drew Hennessy, Gabe Altieb on cover. Joshua Middleton as the variant cover. Brian Cunningham and Amadeo Toro on our editors. Aquaman created by Paul Norris. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. Total apologies for name butchery because the intention is clear. Man, I was digging Aquaman before. I really was. I know that there was some controversy around the last run of Aquaman where some people liked it, some people didn't. I was digging it. There's something about when you take a book and go back to its core and kind of go, what's really cool about this? How do we make this a book that everybody who's a fan of Aquaman's really going to dig and bring in a new audience? But also, you want to really reclaim, and what they're trying to do here is reclaim that disenfranchised fan, that classic DC fan that wants to come back to the books again. They nailed it with this. Oh my gosh, they nailed it with this. Getting Aquaman, Mera, what's going on underwater, above water. That's the cool part about Aquaman. It's the duality of worlds. He literally is, and it's a pun, but God, you have to say it. There's so many times where this dude's a fish out of water.
Yeah.
And if you take advantage of it and really tell cool stories with it that showcase, yeah, he's the guy that talks to fishes, but you're soon going to forget that when you see what he can do to you. I mean, that's what Aquaman's all about for me. It's like this character's one. I grew up watching him on Super Friends, so I had one impression of him. When I started reading him in comics, that quickly changes fast. And I loved him in Super Friends, don't get me wrong, but it was a different character in the sense of what you looked at with him. My gosh, we start off this issue with the helicopters coming at them, and Aquaman's trying. He's done everything he can to be diplomatic. He's still got the cuffs on because he kept himself in shackles. But circumstances put him in a position where I can't stick to that. We've got to, move forward. There's events that they keep. I'm trying to take the high road. I'm trying to keep the peace between the underwater and the above water. They're just not letting me. And there's forces outside that we know are in play causing this to happen. They're causing these two worlds to converge and to fight each other. They want it to happen. And I like that Mera doesn't necessarily have the same sense of, listen, patience is not a virtue always with Mera. And I love that about her. I actually really love that you've got the female character being the one saying, listen, Arthur, I love you and all, and I want to marry you, but you got to understand, there comes a point where they're messing with my hair. And you don't mess with Mera. I really love Mera. I know you and I have both been big fans of her since the whole Blackest Night, Brightest Day thing. When that happened with her, they brought the character back to its roots and made her a star, to the point where we were both saying, Mera solo series, let's go with it. If they don't bring back Aquaman, more Mera. Now that they've got them both together again, I want to see them get married. I love the way that she is not Aquaman's wife. And what I mean by that is that's not her only role. She's not, happens to be the fish girl who is Aquaman's wife. She has got her own personality, her own backstory. And to me, it makes them all the more a power couple because of the fact that she is just as much of a star as he is. And she's so unique from him. But yet you can see how she is somebody who rounds him off. She fills in the blanks. She's got certain skills and certain thought processes that he really needs as an advisor. That's somebody that you want that like challenges you and makes you. And I really love how she's written. I like how he's written. And it gets to the core of what makes these characters cool.
Oh, big time. Yeah, it's, what... everything is funny as you're talking. I'm just sitting there quietly sitting back going, yes, 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 yes. Because this has been one of those wonderfully crafted stories. Because you get, initially Black Manta attacks the embassy, kills people, and does what Black Manta does. And how does the U.S. government respond? They revoke his diplomatic credentials. They shut down the embassy saying, you know what? you're too much of a problem. We don't want you on dry land. And I love the fact that he's trying to peacefully resolve this. He's trying to, and the next thing you know, is one thing after another. A U.S. military ship gets sunk by Atlanteans. Well, guess what? Now that's a declaration of war by Atlantis, and Aquaman's like, hey, dude, it wasn't me. And even everything you said, how he went along peacefully. At any point in time, he could have escaped, but he's like, you know what? I'll let you arrest me. I'll let you put me in chains. I'll let you. And he's just sitting there trying to keep the peace, And as just one thing after another. And finally, Mira's like, that's it. It's time to throw down. And she breaks him out. And as soon as it's funny, because as I'm reading this going, oh my God, this is going to end so horribly for them. And it was just kind of like, and again, you talk about a nice blend of humor, banter, that realistic couple conversations. Because I love how, you know, they had that one point in time where it looks like they may possibly break up in the middle of the fight, and Aquaman's like, no, I still love you. I still want to marry you, but we got to deal with this now. And I love the fact that you have that kind of, because you could see in the real world where you would have that moment where you got crazy chaos going on. You've got this, you know, relationship, you know, in chaotic flux, and you're trying to fix that. You're trying to fix this other stuff, and the other stuff just happens to be basically the entire army attacking you. And it was such a cool moment when she's like throwing pieces of a tank, and Aquaman's like, no one dies today. And he catches the helicopter, puts it on the ground so no one dies. But it was just a great, again, that hero moment. He's a member of the Justice League. And I love how they keep bringing that up, and they keep talking about that. Yeah, this is somebody we trust. This is Superman's friend. This is somebody who has saved the world multiple times, but he's kind of a trouble magnet. He kind of brings, you know, chaos with him. There's, you know, and I love just that nice blending of, you know, it's that political intrigue where, yes, this guy is the Justice League member, but you know, as people, we kind of got to watch this, especially because we've seen in the past where multiple coastal cities were wiped out by the Atlanteans, because the death toll was huge in the past. And we've seen this stuff happen where the Atlanteans are intact. And I thought that was wonderful how they're still holding on to those past stories. They're still holding on to that resentment. They're still holding on to that, and they're still bringing it up. And again, it's wonderful political intrigue, cool superhero story, but also a wonderful personal relationship story.
I like the whole Tula bits where she's behind the scenes trying to keep the peace too, trying to follow her king's orders. But when they're attacked to the point where they're going to be killed, she makes a judgment call that I can't fault. The circumstances have really been pointing towards that direction. Mobilizing the war fleet, having them come out there is only going to cause more political. I like the political piece of this, too. It's a great relationship story with Aquaman and Mira. I like the political drama on both sides, above and underwater, and what's going on there. You can see this being, you know, two nations that are ready to escalate, especially when you've got in Antarctica, the character the Fisher King. At first, you know, what a cheesy name that sounds like. Until you actually meet him and see the whole situation, I think that's deliberate.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of those things where it's to kind of get you to drop your guard around him.
Yeah.
That's why he looks as, you know, he kind of looks like a friendly Santa Claus there. You know, he's kind of got the Santa Claus look going on. You know, granted, he's wearing all black and he's probably going to try to control the world. But you know what? Hey, look at him. He's kind of friendly. Oh, he's just a Fisher King. Come on. Yeah. And I thought that for you, again, you know, political intrigue, the different levels of, you've got the U.S. government acting, you've got the Atlantean government acting, now we've got the Fisher King with Nemo, which, again, when they introduced Nemo, and even Manta's like, okay, that's an acronym. What the heck is it with you people and acronyms? And I loved how Black Manta is, again, he's like, this is ridiculous, but as he's going, they're showing you can slowly start to think, okay, let me, I think this is something I could work with. And I thought for me, that was a kind of a neat Black Manta's role in this, because we really saw Aquaman lay a smackdown on him. We saw him actually kind of question what he's been doing with his life. Well, guess what? Manta now's got a purpose. Manta looks like Manta may have a cause that he's going to go with, which is going to be very dangerous for everybody, including the Fisher King. Because I see Manta double-crossing the Fisher King, and that's when we're really going to see the true face of the Fisher King. We're going to see his true power levels with Manta. And I'm wondering if we're kind of going to get a Manta realizing this guy's a nut jobby and I got to take him down, and maybe are we going to get a Manta Aquaman tag team, which for me would kind of be a neat thing, because it's, again, whenever you have that the hero and their villain having to work together because of this other outside threat, it does some cool moments.
Over at Amnesty Bay, Stubbs and Watson sounds like it should be a spinoff.
Yeah.
I really like that they haven't dropped Stubbs. I liked her role in the early parts of this. I like that she was kind of influenced by her meeting with Aquaman and Mira and what that all looked like. And I'm glad that she is kind of a bridge between the two worlds, where I kind of saw things a different way than people are saying they actually happened. And I like that, she seems to be trying to help. I want to know what she gave her. If you see him, could you give him this? I want to see what it is. I want to know what that is. I like that mystery and how you're using, some of the side characters in this to kind of further the story on that end.
I'm wondering part of me was wondering if that was evidence to help clear the Atlanteans, or something from her government saying, hey, we trust the Atlanteans. Because you think about back when she first met Mira, and Mira knew who she was, and Mira had a level of respect for the British Navy, for the Royal Navy. And I think, I'm wondering if that's kind of like a reciprocation back. Those two things popped in my head, because like you, I did wonder what she gave her, what was in there. But those are the first two things that popped in my head. Either something that would help clear the Atlanteans, or something official document from the British government saying, we are cool with the Atlanteans. And maybe are we going to see maybe a shifting of where this diplomat, the embassy is? Maybe we'll see an embassy shifting over into Great Britain.
I agree. And those things are all interesting, kind of seeing how the greater world reacts to this. I actually want to see. This book has an endless potential, and I think you just touched on something there, to go to a variety of different places, have a variety of different interactions. And that's one of the great things about Aquaman is there's so much has been explored with Aquaman, but so much that's untapped. When you think about how vast the underwater world is, I love that they've opened that up as being a part of the storytelling. He's just as interesting on the surface as he is underwater, and I like that bit of it. The ending was the killer one for me, right? Because you see the two of them are bickering, which anybody would in a situation like this. But man, I'm so Superman happy right now anyway. One of the things that Rebirth is doing really well as a line is picking some great moments to connect these characters and have good advice. Hello, Arthur. I think we should talk. That was a great shot at the end. I really loved it. Superman's costume, the new one, really awesome. I love the new Superman costume. I like that it goes back to kind of, you don't have to have the whole armor thing, because this is Superman. Yeah. And I want to see the conversation. I'm excited to see the team up that's going to spin out of this one. Also remembering that he knows this isn't his Superman. But I want to see that relationship continue to develop. There's so much cool stuff going on with Rebirth right now, and this is just a great example of how you make maximum use of your characters.
Yeah, and it's funny because I didn't actually, when I jumped right into reading this, I didn't read the beginning part. For whatever reason, I didn't read the creative team. And if I had read the creative team, I would have seen Superman by Siegel and Schuster, and I would have known. So I didn't know that that's how it was going to end. And I loved how this panel's playing out because as I'm going through, and I get to that, that moment where, stop. Oh, you see part of Superman's cape right there. So right before you flip the page and you have that beautiful, and I agree with you how he looks, it was just, again, really captivated. But I love how you had that piece of the cape right there. So if you're paying attention, you'll see the cape and you'll know who could actually get them to stop. Who could get Mirror to say, oh, like that. It's, of course, the Big Blue. And like you, this is a cool look. I like the fact that he's being in there. Looking forward to seeing how Clark actually can end this violence, because throughout this story, I love the fact that Arthur did reference Superman. he referenced the fact that he was the Justice League. He referenced that, and it was funny because when he was talking to, when they were talking to the president, when they were talking to the chief of staff, they're saying, hey, we don't completely trust you. Like, well, you know what? Then why don't you go to somebody you do trust? Why don't you go to Superman? Ask him. He'll vouch for me. And I love the fact that, again, inside this superhero universe, there is that factor, and there is the Superman factor, the fact that Clark is there to kind of bring things peacefully resolve. And it's, this was a great way to end it, a great, cliffhanger kind of moment that leads you going, oh man, what's going to happen next? Because if Arthur and Mira don't stand down, how's Clark going to handle it? Is he going to let them get to the water? Because if he was sent there by the government to stop him, or if he was just there to stop the violence, he may make a judgment call. And then this could lead to so many possibilities of where this could spin out of control. And I love the fact that whenever you get a good political story, whenever you get this kind of governmental intrigue and just the craziness of a government, multiple, governmental agencies dealing with each other, you're going to have these moments where at a heartbeat, it can completely flip and spin and go a completely different direction. We have one of those moments right here, right now. Where is this going to go? And I love this.
Yeah, that's something that really stuck out for me, too. And I love that about this particular book and Rebirth in general. This has been just a really fun time. I'm glad we talked about these books. It's funny. I want to keep going. We're gonna wrap up with this particular issue, but I can't wait for our next episode to talk further about these books, because this has just been such an exciting time for these characters. I want to say it's an exciting rebirth. I like that they didn't drop continuity.
Yeah,
I like that they found ways to reimagine and reinvent characters while keeping the current continuity going. It's really important to do that, because I think you don't want to alienate your fans that have been reading. You want to bring back in your fans that abandoned ship because they weren't finding what they need. And this was a really smart way to do it.
Holy caffeine!
I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434. Or Dr. Norge on Skype. It's in every one of our show notes. It's also available on our website. We will be doing voicemails next episode, and we adore having you as part of our show. Sponsoring this episode, once again, is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, remember, it's the time to go check out their website to see what the brand new deals are going to be for the coming month of September. So check out DCBService.com for those deals and make sure to save some money. Jim, what's going on at InStockTrades.com?
Well, we've got the Scalped hardcover deluxe edition, 50% off, only $14.99, and the Superman Lois and Clark trade paper, 50% off, only $8.99. And of course, with In Stock Trades, there is free shipping for any order over $50.
I want to remind everyone about RagingBullets.com. That's our show website where we tell you when the episodes are being released. It feeds to Twitter. It feeds to Facebook. We have a Facebook group fan page community that has grown so far beyond our podcast, and we share it with InfiniteComics.com. But to say it's just us would be doing a disservice. There's fellow podcasters there. There's Jeremy and the people over there who are constantly the regulars, and really it's like their pad, and we actually just visited. And I actually love that, and I really appreciate that it grew into something more. People shout out their podcasts all the time, blogs, different things that they're doing over there. Conversation has started there constantly. It's a real cool community of people. So I encourage you to not only head over there, but also support some of our friends' podcasts and blogs and things that they're doing over there. I consider podcasting a community thing. It's something that I think is pretty unique to comic podcasting, that most of us just really like working together and shouting each other out and being a part of that. I love that aspect about comics podcasting. We're looking for the social thing. So please do support our friends that are over there. And if you see somebody shouting out their podcast, try it out. Because usually if they're posting in the same place you are, they're like-minded. So you're going to want to check out and see what they're talking about. And I like that about the community. Our next episode, Jim, we're going to talk more comics. As Rebirth has been super cool. And there's so many things that you and I wanted to get to in this episode that we will continue talking about them our next program. We will see you then.
Bye.
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.